Well, a couple moves into a new neighborhood, and the first morning, you know, the wife wakes up and her husband are sitting there having breakfast. She looks out and she sees the neighbor hanging the clothes, the washing on the line, and she notices that they don't look very clean. And so she says, you know, that laundry's not clean. I don't think she knows how to wash it correctly. Well, the husband didn't say a word, and this happened several times over the next 30 or 40 days. And so finally, one morning she gets up and sits down and has breakfast, and she happens to notice the laundry out in the line, and it looks very clean, and she makes a comment. She says, look, she says, she's learned how to wash it correctly. I wonder who taught her this. And the husband looks at her and he says, no one. He says, I got up early this morning and cleaned our windows. Got to think about that for a moment. It's, you know, I don't think anything could better describe what it is that we try to do here in Unity. But I think we come here to clean our windows. We come here to get clear about what's going on in our life. We come here to see life, and I speak for myself as much as anything, to see life through new eyes, through a new awareness, through a different perspective, through a new understanding, through an expanded, hopefully an expanded consciousness where we see more than what is really there, and to break out of what often becomes the box of dogma that sometimes shows up in our life. And I'm not just talking about religious dogma, I'm talking about all the dogma that shows up in what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do, and how we're supposed to see life and how things are and what people tell us they are, and all the stuff that comes from the outside world that sort of tries to box us in, and the other agendas that might be imposed on our life. And I think that those things, although they may be important and they may be part of the world, they're not the truth of our being. That telling us what it is that we need to do or not do is not the truth of who we are. The truth of who we are is what is within us and how it is that we were created and what it is that we are here to do. Those are the truths. Michael Beckwith, in his book, and this is the fourth Sunday in us exploring the book Spiritual Liberation, Michael Beckwith tells in his book, in this particular section, about a journey that he made with a group of people to Africa, to an indigenous tribe, where he met up in a very extraordinary sort of experience with a shaman. And with that experience with the shaman, it was a very powerful and moving moment and part of his evolution and growth and life experience. And he had some pretty transcending moments, if you want to read it, the story in the book. I'm not going to tell you the story because it's pretty involved, but basically it was an important moment in his life. And I was looking at that and thinking about what a shaman is. And technically the definition of a shaman is a member of certain tribal societies who act as a medium between the visible world and an invisible world. So it is someone who is capable of and able to stand between two worlds and bring them into one sort of reality or consciousness, has one foot in one and one foot in the other. It's, as Jesus said, in some ways, being in the world, meaning this world around us, and not being of it, not having it be who it is that we are much more than that. And so it's seeing life in many ways through dual eyes. It's being able to see what is happening in the world around us and yet see it through the eyes of spirit, to know what is the reality of the world that is within us. And oftentimes we think of shamans and we have this sort of, at least I do, have this sort of visualized image of somebody in the natural world, in the backwoods or in some tribal sort of environment. And yet the truth is that shamans are everywhere. That each one of us can be or is an urban shaman. That we live in the context of a place where our reality is people. That we have people all around us. So anytime you're in a place where there are millions of people, which we live, then we're in an urban environment. But that does not mean that we cannot live our life with one foot in spirit and one foot in the world, that we can't be the medium between which spirit expresses itself in the world, that we can't be, if you will, urban shamans in our life experience. We are all, if you're here today, you're a shaman in training. Okay? And I can't think of an acronym for that, but you know, I'm sure there's one that would be work, but you're a shaman in training. You know, the world has a lot of tyranny in it. Have you noticed that in other countries and other places you see a lot of things that happen and you know, you see despots and you see all this stuff that shows up in the newspapers and what we read about. But you know, it's interesting that a lot of us experience tyranny in our life, our own individual life. And we have tyranny sometimes in relationships with other people. We have tyranny at work. We have things that happen that we can't explain. And oftentimes tyranny shows up in many different ways, and I think the greatest tyranny that we're facing, and one of the things that Michael talked about in the book, is the tyranny of trends. And trends are the things that show up as the latest and greatest, what it is that we're supposed to do or what we might to conform to. He tells us that trends, the tyranny of trends says that we must smell a certain way, we must wear a certain label, we must weigh a specific weight, we must have the whitest teeth, we must drive a certain car, we must make a certain income, and we must worship in a certain way. So all these things show up as what we call the tyranny of trends. And if we do these things, that we'll have it made. We'll be accepted, we'll be acknowledged by the world around us, that we'll be, you know, we'll be in the flow of the world. And the challenge with that is that trends are moving targets. As anything in this world, everything changes in the world around us, and trends are a moving target. And so what is the in thing today becomes the uncool thing tomorrow. You know, the greatest phone to have today is not the phone that's coming out tomorrow that you should have in your pocket. And if you don't have that phone, that there's something wrong with you, that you have not made it yet into the real world, the world of the best phone, or the best car, or the best whatever it is, or you can't text fast enough, or you can't, you know, on and on, it goes on and on and on. And trends, I think, in our reality are really not about who we are, they're about products and promotion. They're about the world around us and how that world forms in order to bring forth whatever is we think the greatest and the latest thing to have in our life. And so it's about products and promotion. And it's attached to imperfections. And so we think of, whatever it is that we think of that isn't perfect about us is what we step into. So somebody creates a certain visualize or image about us that may not be what it needs to be, that maybe we're not the right weight or the right height or the right this or the right that, or maybe our picture isn't airbrushed. So we don't look the same as the model on the front of the magazine, and we wonder why I'm so imperfect, I need to be perfect, and so we do all these things, or we have plastic surgery or whatever it is that we think we need to look right. So our real desire is to fit into the world, and that's what we want. And so it's not about rejecting innovations and products and the things around us. I think many of the things that are produced, the creative energy that's put into them, actually improve our lives. It sometimes makes our lives easier. And so there's nothing wrong with the products and the things that show up in our world. What we need to work with is how to live in relationship to those things and to be what it is that we have come here to be. To be able to stand in the spirit world and in the physical world and to see the truth about ourselves and our relationship to the world and who we are. Michael Beckwith says, the innate desire to be your authentic self is hijacked by the ego. But as you become more mindfully aware, you will develop a sense of humor in dealing with the ego's tricks. You don't have to waste time feeling guilty when you catch yourself. Just laugh it off. I mean, really. It's really quite humorous.